Omarosa says Trump arranged conference call with David Pecker to get her to drop Enquirer lawsuit. Omarosa Manigault Newman claims President Trump intervened with persistent efforts on behalf of his friend David Pecker in 2011 to get her to drop a lawsuit against the National Enquirer's parent company. The former White House aide elaborated on the claim in a TV interview Tuesday while promoting her tell-all book, Unhinged, and says Trump went so far as to arrange a conference call and recommend the tactic she ultimately adopted. She ultimately dropped her suit and took a 2-year job with the firm, an arrangement she now calls shady dealing. Omarosa wrote about the incident in her book, saying an Enquirer reporter posed as a mourner at the funeral for her brother, Jack, who was murdered in his Youngstown home. She took the words from my eulogy, turned them into an article with quotes, and claimed to have interviewed me while we stood over my brother's casket, she wrote. The paper called it an exclusive interview, she added. Then Trump intervened on behalf of his close friend, she said. She told MSNBC in an interview Tuesday that after the incident, he called me to tell me that he learned about the lawsuit after the murder of my brother, that I had against the Enquirer, and that David Pecker was a really good, close friend of his, and that he thought we should work it out outside of court because he didn't want to see any harm to David Pecker. Trump was persistent in making sure that I negotiated a deal with him, Omarosa added. His influence, having mentored her in season 1 of The Apprentice and beyond, prevailed. And because I respected him, he's my mentor. He's saying that David Pecker is his friend. Ultimately, as you'll see in Unhinged, I would go on to work for AMI in exchange for not filing a lawsuit against them, she added. The incident, as Omarosa recounts it, is just another chapter in the symbiotic relationship between Trump and Pecker. In the book, she describes Trump as the architect of the deal with Pecker, who was also involved in negotiations with longtime Trump lawyer Michael Cohen over Playboy model Karen McDougal, who claims she had an affair with Trump. McDougal got a $150,000 payment and a job in exchange for exclusive rights to her story, which the Enquirer never ran. Her contract gave the publication life rights to her story of any romantic, personal and/or physical relationship McDougal has ever had with any then-married man. As a personal favor to Pecker, Donald agreed to call me and talk me out of the lawsuit. But I was so angry they'd portrayed me as someone who'd seek publicity over my dead brother's body that I was reluctant to drop it, Omarosa writes. Donald went back to Pecker and negotiated a deal for me. In exchange for a settlement with American Media, Incorporated, the parent company of the National Enquirer, they would give me the high-profile job and title of West Coast editor. As she described it, the job included travel, an office, a staff of photographers and reporters. But what sealed the deal for me was that Donald personally asked me to accept it. He'd been very influential in my life, and I was loyal to him and ever grateful for what he'd done for me. If he asked me, as a favor, to drop my lawsuit against another of his friends, I had to do it. She quotes Trump as telling her, Omarosa, you've got to drop this lawsuit against the Enquirer. David Pecker is my close friend. I've spoken with him, and he's willing to work with you. What do you want? AMI did not immediately return a message seeking comment. She compares the deal she struck to an effort she says the Trump campaign made to hire her after she left the White House for a $15,000 per month job, with a non-disclosure agreement as a condition. This was the first time that, in exchange for dropping a lawsuit, Donald Trump brokered a senior position for me instead. The similarities between that deal and the one I was offered after my White House departure, in that case, my silence in exchange for a job, cannot be denied. The pattern had been established 6 years prior. No wonder they thought I'd bite at the apple a second time, she wrote.